What's shaking, everybody? Welcome back to another edition of the Orange Bloods Texas Football Channel. I'm Geoff. That's Anwar. Our last names are Ketchum and Richardson. We're talking Texas football recruiting. It is the eve of National Signing Day. Texas got a big-time commitment last night. There's so much to talk about. Do us a solid. Give us a like on the video. We do appreciate it. Subscribe to the channel. We're going to pass 9,000 subscribers today. Get notification, leave comments in the comment section, do all that jazz. And oh, by the way, bookmark the page if for no other reason than tomorrow or today, depending on when you might watch this video, or last week, if it turns out you're watching this on a little bit of a delay, we're going to be doing a 3-hour live National Signing Day show. Both myself and Anwar, Jason Sukumel will join us. Multiple Texas Longhorn signings will join us. Mike Farrell just confirmed. We might even have a couple of Texas Longhorn players who are on the Orange Bloods roster join us during the show. We can talk about their signing days, their reactions to everything that's been happening over the course of the last few days. So it's an exciting time to be following Texas football, to be watching the channel. Join us tomorrow. I think we'll be the only game in town. 3 hours, even if you don't like us, we'll be live reacting to all the stuff that will need to be reacted to. Last night, Anwar, late, Sark after dark, which is a really weird thing. Like, I wonder if you want these, it's a bit, right? Sark after dark, it rhymes. So do they do these commitments and after 11 o'clock at night? It's cool. It's kind of funny for social media. I don't know that it works in terms of getting maximum exposure because you miss your TV and your newspaper deadlines. Presumably those things still matter a little bit, but the Longhorns land a massive offensive line talent. Allen offensive lineman Nato Omozolo commits. We're just going to call him Nato for the purpose of not trying to sound foolish on this show time after time after time. But Anwar, he commits last night. For my money, it's the second most important commitment in this entire recruiting class, behind the commitment from Kelvin Banks just a couple of days ago. It's another big, dominant, successful offensive lineman that feels a need at the biggest need they have in this class. We've been spending a lot of time talking about Kyle Flood and Steve Sarkisian and the momentum they have. This one really excited me last night.
Yeah, I mean, you look at the film and, obviously you see mass, right? And you see a guy who's mauling. So you want to see that kind of dominant presence on the offensive line. And you can totally see that. You see what he's now in room that is starting to get with a lot of good bodies. It's interesting. Every time I think of recruiting, Ketch, I think back to when I was in Tampa and was covering the Bucks, and John Gruden was the coach at that point. And he always would talk to me as it gets a draft. He goes, inevitably his preference was to draft linemen because it's like there just are not a bunch of athletic 300-pound men walking the face of this earth. And he's like, you can find an athletic 6 foot, 185-pound guy. Those guys are everywhere. But athletic at 300, 6'4", 300, that's tough to find. You got to snag them. So the Texas stockpiling more talent to bring in with this offensive line. I know this. This will probably lead into your Kyle Flood throwing the flowers in front of him, like coming to America. But he's been doing a badass job.
It's funny because last night, unbeknownst to us, that everybody knows that Nato is a guy that Texas has been after. He's taken official visits to Texas and Oklahoma and Alabama, and USC was a team that I think you wondered whether or not the Lincoln Riley move to USC might impact his recruitment. But I was getting ready to release my updated top 100 list last night, and Alex was moaning about some other kid that he'd watched on film. I don't want to say his name out loud because I don't want to throw the kid under the bus. But Alex had been watching film of guys, and he saw a guy whose highlight tape didn't impress him very much. And I said, hey, take a look at Nato's film. And I sent him the link. And then the whole staff ended up talking about how impressive he was in the film. And what was really interesting about the film is it wasn't a highlight tape really, as much as it was film from one game. And he just beat the crap out of dudes for like 3 minutes from a single game film. He's just a really impressive young man, 6'5", 300 pounds, plays with a ton of physicality, and he plays at a program in Allen High School that is synonymous with winning championships and competing for championships. I mean, everybody knows the Kyler Murray run that they had where they basically just didn't lose for, half a decade. This is one that I really like for a lot of reasons, but it helps when you watch him that he jumps off of the film.
Yes.
And he jumps off the film because he violently abuses dudes.
Yes. And again, he definitely does that. You can tell that he definitely stands out, Ketch, because, it is, it seemed like everyone was a pancake, Ketch. It seems like everybody he touched at some point pretty much hit the ground or he cleared out. But you saw some versatility on him playing on different sides of the line. I'm kind of curious for you, Ketch. What do you project him as on this level? Do you see him outside, or do you see him more of an inside presence?
See, that's a great question. He's listed. So Rivals.com, real quick, let's go through his rankings.
Okay.
Rivals has him as a mid 4-star prospect, number 159 in the nation, the number 7 offensive guard, and the number 24 prospect in Texas. 24/7 has him as a low 4-star, number 34 in Texas. ESPN has him as a 4-star, number 72 in the country. So ESPN really likes him. And On3 has him as a 4-star and the number 66 player in the country. I think the ESPN On3 rankings are the closest rankings to what I believe, because I have him rated higher than all of those people. I have him as the number 10 player in the state, which roughly translates to top 50, top 60 nationally, which is slightly higher than what the two highest, ESPN and On3, have him regarded as. Everybody has him as an inside guy.
Yeah.
The inside thing will be easy for him. I think he's a good enough athlete, though, that, let me put it to you like this. He's more athletic than a guy like Kent Perkins, who, didn't turn into a great tackle at Texas, but he played some tackle. And I think that until Texas is in a position where he reminds me a lot of Justin Blaylock, that's the player, one of the players that I somewhat compare him to. I think inside's his best position, but I think he can play tackle if needed. And this might be a Texas football program that needs help at tackle. So I wouldn't be shocked if he's a guy we see get a look at right tackle per se. The smart money is probably him moving inside, but I think that's the smart money for most of the guys they have committed. I mean, it's the smart money for Cameron Williams, even though he could also play right tackle. It's the smart money for Connor Robinson. It's the smart money for Cole Hudson. It's even the smart money for Devin Campbell, who's the nation's number 1 offensive guard. Somebody's got to play tackle. And what I'm telling you is I think this kid's a good enough athlete and has the frame to pull that off. I don't know that his pass blocking chops quite stand out. I think he has to be coached up a little bit, but I think he's got it in him.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely, just when I look at the video, he definitely, to me, projects more inside than out. Just, I don't know, at this moment, would he be quick enough on the, especially at the left tackle position? I know.
No way, left tackle.
Yeah. I don't seem quick enough for that. Potentially 2-point right tackle, might be able to, but I definitely see him settling for early playing time. Definitely see him, as a guard with, again, good strength. It's hard part about it, Catch, is it'll be interesting to see when he gets like really great technique. He's such a massive force that I don't know how much technique he really had to put in, but you see him driving guys like 50 yards down the field. You're like, man, oh, hey, man, I know, play to the end of the whistle. I'm thinking everyone stopped, and you're like, man, I'm gonna put this guy into the concession stand. So I like that, by the way. I thought that was some of the stuff that really stood out about him. So it is when you start thinking about the guys that are going to have to replace in that offensive line room, his tape looks good enough to say, okay, within the next couple of years, he should be a guy that should be in the mix, that we should 2 years from now, 3 at most, maybe know exactly how to pronounce his name, because he's a guy that's competing for a starting position.
Yeah, I think that what I like about him as an athlete is that he makes moving look easy. So they do a lot of counters. They're pulling him a lot. They're getting him out in space. And one of the toughest things that any offensive lineman ever has to do is block in space. I mean, where he's really impressive isn't just firing out and bulldozing guys, which he does. But I think where he's really impressive is when he's asked to get on the move and he gets in the counter game and is able to get to the second level, get his body on guys, and everybody can get some. Like, one of the things that I loved about his game film in the couple of individual games that I watched, it wasn't like he found one little children from the poor, some kid who's like homeless and, on a street corner asking for money, like Tiny Tim. Like, there's no Tiny Tims. He gave it to everybody. Like, it felt like every dude on the opposing team needed the whirlpool the next day, because at some point in the game, Nato found them. And when Nato finds people, he puts them on the ground. His ability to do that in space is why I have some hopes for him as a tackle, because I think you can, he's got some technique issues that, with good coaching, which is what Kyle Flood is renowned for, along clearly with recruiting, there's a tackle in that kid. But that part of his game is a more developmental part of his game. It wouldn't shock if you saw that guy come inside. What's the easiest way for him to get on the field? Offensive guard. We need that kind of help right away, is probably what the coaches are saying. And then if he develops and gets better, we see this in the NFL sometimes too. Guys can grow into the tackle position. Mm-hmm. Sometimes it just takes time. The bottom line is Texas continues to stack up offensive linemen in this class. We're looking now at one of the best offensive line classes that Texas has ever produced. And at the same time, they're not done. I mean, really, to be able, if they find a way to line Devin Campbell like we think Anwar, it'll be the first time off the top of my head. I don't think it's ever happened where the Longhorns have signed 3 top 10 level offensive linemen from the state of Texas in the same class, or even in-state, out-of-state combined. I've never seen Texas sign 3 offensive linemen as good as a trio of Nato, Kelvin Banks, and Devin Campbell would look like on paper.
Yeah, and still throwing in, Cole Hudson, who previously committed, who was also, I think was he pretty high 4-star Catch, if I remember.
He's a 4-star.
4-star, so got in the 4-star cusp is right there. So and they still have the developmental guy from Westlake, what's his name, Catch? I feel
Connor Robertson.
Yeah, Connor. I don't want to be disrespectful. So so you have a good assemblage, like I said. You add in Devin, if that's what he pulls that trigger on Wednesday. It's not only the best haul, Catch. It's Catch, when you think about classes that have come in and you think about, okay, you've got to replace it. Usually it's short. It usually takes time to get to say, oh man, got to really stack this linebacker room or improve the defensive line room. For them to come in and say, okay, you know what? We've got to get better, and then to get the best in the country, best in the state, to stay here and go there. Yeah, Kyle Flood deserves all the flowers that he can get, because again, That's a badass recruiting job.
Yeah, and this, I don't want to repeat a lot of things that we talked about yesterday on the Monday overreaction show. So I would advise everybody, if you haven't seen the overreaction show, it's the day before this video came out. I think it's a really good discussion on the momentum that Texas has going right now. But we're 24 hours from signing day. Let's just wrap this up with Texas is still expecting fireworks. And this top 5 class, which I think is solid as a rock now, right? I mean, 2 weeks ago, could Texas stay in the top 10? Would they be able to hold on? And, I'd have to try to explain to people why top 5 classes are different than top 10 classes. They don't really belong in the same sentence. And a top 25 class is basically the same as a top 10. There's some fool's gold when you say top 10 recruiting class. There's a lot of meat on the bone when you're talking about a top 5 class.
Mm-hmm.
Following 5 and 7, it appears one way or the other, Texas has found themselves in a position to have one of those classes that on paper is different than ones who are merely 5 spots behind it in the rankings.
I think it's good. I don't have nothing else to add to that, Ketch.
All right, well, look, we'll be here all morning tomorrow, 8 to 11 Central, the live, L-I-V-E, live Orange Blood's 3 hours signing day special, guests galore. Anwar and myself will be holding it down. I don't think anyone has ever quite done anything like it ever before. We haven't. So be with us tomorrow when we get crazy, and who knows what might happen with 3 hours of live reactions to whatever the hell might happen tomorrow. And as Jason Sukumel told me earlier in Slack, he can't remember the last time he really didn't know what the hell was going to happen on National Signing Day. It should be fun. We'll see you tomorrow. Later.